So we're like, this is a high risk call. We're going to somebody that could have COVID. So first of all, they would obviously put on all of their PPE, the hazmat, the full hazmat suit, goggles, gloves. But what was important to us is at the time that they got called to this high risk case, that the PD had a choice. We didn't want to be sending people in and saying, you've got to film like this. You've got to sit in the back and film the patient that's got COVID.
We offered talent 4 different ways of filming. People filming content on their own phones. And for example, the Vicar of Dibley sketch, the Doctor Who cast, the cast of EastEnders, Romesh, the stand-ups who did their bits on the night, they were all filmed on their phone. But what was quite important, having spoken to the edit, iPhone footage tends to take a huge amount of time to ingest and will cause a bit of a logjam in what was already going to be a very busy edit. So what we did, we sent them details of an app called, I think it's Filmic Pro was the app, that we asked talent to download onto their phones, gave them instructions. It cost £14 or £15. We said we'd reimburse them, but they're all fine with that. And that app basically allowed them to, it would film in a format that wasn't going to congest the edit. It meant that the resolution of what they filmed was higher than you'd normally get on your iPhone, so the quality was going to be a bit better. And it also meant that the footage was stored in the cloud as opposed to on people's phones, because the worst thing in the world would be that Dawn French would be halfway through a brilliant take and her phone to run out of storage. So that immediately gave people confidence to be able to film themselves. It gave us confidence that we were going to get a really good quality and version of their phone. The other option was for us to send kits to people and then talk them through how to set it up, which we did for the likes of Catherine Tate and David Tennant. The other option was for us to take kits to people's homes and then set it up for them and then leave and let them film themselves. And then the final option was for us to send a PD into people's houses and have them at a socially distant 2 meters, etc., etc. So, which we did with the likes of David Walliams, for example. So he recorded we did a prize giveaway with David and his half of the Little Britain sketch. That was all filmed with a PD in his house. Whereas Matt Lucas, for his baked potato performance and for his side of the sketch, was filmed on his phone whilst the PD was directing him over Zoom, sat in his car outside on the laptop.
We knew straight away that our features team couldn't go out and shoot VTs. So we used all the camera equipment that we had and transported it and divided it up between our favourite chefs. So they each had a camera kit in their home. And then we sent our live camera person literally to stand outside the window of that person at the chef's house and direct them in how to connect his live view unit to a camera and then set it up. So all our chefs are now trained cameramen. And then, so that we could still broadcast, and we broadcast from inside their homes. We started off using Skype for some people on their phones. We did FaceTime Skype. We've tried Facebook Portal. We've tried live view cameras. We've tried all different forms to make it work. We've got a great example of how we try to replicate as much of a studio feel as you could in one of the chef's homes. So for example, in Gok's house, Gok Wan, we had a camera giving you the regular shot you'd imagine. We had an iPhone mounted on a rig above so you could see a top shot of the food he was cooking. And then we had his iPad on the side so he could show you the food close up. So I think that's kind of as close as you can get to replicating a studio environment.
You know, we had a very limited amount of time before we needed to start filming. And, you know, we had 3 days for me and a senior producer to go and do all the access to the whole of the ambulance service. But it was important that we didn't lose sight of the fundamentals of an access doc. You know, we needed to go in, win hearts and minds, and make sure that those staff felt that we were there to listen and tell their story that they wanted to share with us. You know, the interesting point about going in whilst you're in the midst of a pandemic is that the pandemic's the priority and you're very much the second part of that. So actually they don't worry as much that you're there. They're very much caught up in this unfolding story that they don't know what's coming next. So as long as you go in the right place with the right attitude to listen to them, they were more than happy to be sharing their story and giving us that time.
He'd go to a separate room with his family. We'd nominate the room we were going to film in. They'd send somebody in. I think they had the opportunity of wearing a full suit.
Yeah,
so they'd take people in full suit, put their laptop down, swab everything they touched, so it was completely clean, exit, and then David would come in, do his stuff, exit. They would come back in again in the suit, swab it all down, gloves, everything, take it back outside.
The PD is in an ambulance. He's in the back of the ambulance filming, and in the ambulance we have 2 GoPros in the back and 2 GoPros at the front, and they might be being called to a suspected COVID case. So we're like, this is a high risk call. We're going to somebody that could have COVID. So first of all, they would obviously put on all of their PPE, the hazmat, the full hazmat suit, goggles, gloves. But what was important to us is at the time that they got called to this high-risk case, that the PD had a choice. We didn't want to be sending people in and saying, you've got to film like this. You've got to sit in the back and film the patient that's got COVID. So we kind of left it down to the PD to decide, and they had 3 options. They basically could film in the back with the passenger that had COVID in the full gear, and the NHS deemed that as safe. They said that as long as we were wearing the full PPE, they were happy for us to film in the back with the patient. But if the PD didn't want to do that, they could sit in the front cabin, and we would switch the GoPros on, and they could shut the door because there's a door separating the front cabin to the back. Or if they weren't happy with that, they could sit in a follow car that was following the ambulances, switch the GoPros on, so we'd still be getting those pictures, but they would sit in the back. And, that's if someone was really coughing and spluttering, high temperature, and they thought, hold on a minute, this looks too high risk. They would go in the follow car. So I think, it was about not just coming up with protocols that got us what we wanted, but made the team feel safe. And I think that's what we ended up doing in the end.
We made the decision to try and do things differently. Obviously, working with creators is a bit easier because most of them have cameras, setups, lighting, sound all in their homes. They're almost made for isolation filming, right?
I mean, you would have assumed that it's probably the easiest the easiest project you could do because they're used to just filming themselves at home and streaming to the internet. So it's
But the tricky thing is being able to then hook that camera up that they're using to our system to meet the specs that needed to be done, to make sure it looks consistent across all of the different streams, and then to integrate things that doesn't make it feel just like we're watching lockdown content. Because I think we were maybe 6 weeks in at that point, and we didn't really want it all to be kind of Zoom calls and chats and interactions. So we made a decision that there was always going to be at least 2 high standard 4K quality cameras in the house, and we gave everybody a mobile phone which was live view capable. So if they wanted to do tours of their house, leave, move stuff, show the different interactions, it felt like a different angle, but also felt more relevant to YouTube as a platform. So it felt like it was like user generated rather than a production team coming in to set up a look. I think on the whole, it worked really well. It was really successful.